course, this is a process that's been underway since the Digital Platforms Inquiry commenced, based upon very thorough public policy work. And we've been very clear all the way along that we certainly want Google and Facebook to stay in Australia, continue to be important parts of the digital economy here. But at the same time, if you're doing business in Australia, you need to comply with the laws of the made by the elected Australian Parliament. So it's been a very clear principle. We welcome the fact, the reports of agreements reached between Google and 3 Australian news media businesses, and the fact that, as we understand it, there are other discussions occurring. And I certainly endorse what the Treasurer has said about this very unfortunate decision by Facebook, this very unfortunate action they've taken. What they're effectively saying to Australians is, you will not find content on our platform which comes from an organisation which employs professional journalists, which has editorial policies, which has fact-checking processes. They're effectively saying you will not find information that meets those standards of accuracy on our site. That seems a very surprising position, and one that is unlikely to be in the long-term interest of their brand. And of course, the community impact of this is very significant. Of course, as the Treasurer has said, the fact that there are organisations like state health departments, fire and emergency services and so on who have had their Facebook pages blocked, that's a public safety issue. I've spoken to Facebook this morning and said the government expects them to restore those pages as quickly as possible. There is great responsibility that comes with being a platform that, as the Digital Platforms Inquiry said, has over 17 million Australians visit it every month. And I've spoken this morning to the operator of North Shore Mums, which is a well-known Facebook page in my own electorate, and like a number of similar services around Australia, her Facebook page has been blocked, and that is of significant concern. So we are very clear that we think this is the wrong action by Facebook, and of course we're very clear on the proposition that we're going to legislate the code. We've been talking to stakeholders all the way through, including Google and Facebook, and we'll continue to do that. But that principle is very clear.
Treasurer, were you blindsided by this decision today? You said that those discussions were constructive. Were you blindsided this morning when you woke up and realised this is what Facebook had done?
Well, we certainly weren't given any notice by Facebook, and you're right, I spoke to him over the weekend, but I also spoke to him this morning. We had a pretty lengthy conversation, around half an hour, and it was constructive. I think there's some differing interpretations as to how the code would work, and we talked through some of those elements, and we're happy to help clarify some of those issues with Facebook, because as Paul said, we want commercial agreements under the code, we want to implement and legislate the code, and we want the major players to stay here in Australia and to keep providing the services to Australians that Australians so enjoy. So we are going to work through those issues with Facebook. I also want to point out that Facebook had been, up to this point, engaged in pretty constructive discussions with the Australian news media businesses. They had made quite a lot of progress, and deals were relatively close. Google was always a little bit in front, and the pace of that progress really picked up over the last 72 hours. But the Facebook had made significant progress, and they are committed to paying for content, and they did tell me that they like being here in Australia. So we will look at their actions today. We'll hear from them in the coming days, and we'll see if we can find a pathway forward. But the Morrison government's position is very clear. We will legislate this code. We want the digital giants paying traditional news media businesses for generating original journalistic content. This is critical to sustaining public interest journalism in this country, and this is world leading.